In the heart of a storm, urban explorer Nathan stumbles upon Mannequin Alley, a ghost town where time stands still and mannequins outnumber the living. Each step he takes unravels a deeper, darker mystery as the lifeless figures seem to watch and follow. Trapped in this eerie, silent world, Nathan's reality blurs, challenged by the unblinking eyes of the mannequins. Are they just figures, or something more sinister? As Nathan fights to escape, he discovers a chilling truth that will leave you questioning what is real and what is merely a mannequin's dream. Welcome to Mannequin Alley, where the line between the living and the lifeless is terrifyingly blurred. Chapter 1. Arrival in Silence. The storm had been relentless, pounding against the windshield like a barrage of unending fury. Nathan, gripping the steering wheel of his old Jeep, squinted through the rain-blurred glass. He was an urban explorer by passion, a wanderer who thrived on uncovering the forgotten corners of the world. Tonight, however, his adventure was driven more by necessity than desire. The storm had forced him off the main road, leading him down a labyrinth of forgotten back roads. As the rain finally began to relent, Nathan noticed a faded wooden sign, barely legible under the dim glow of his headlights. Welcome to Mannequin Alley. The name sent a shiver down his spine, not out of fear, but intrigue. An abandoned town, perhaps, perfect for exploration once the storm passed. Driving into the heart of the town, he was struck by the profound silence. It was as if life itself had decided to give this place a wide berth. The buildings, though intact, bore the unmistakable signs of long-term neglect. Peeling paint, boarded windows and doors ajar, swinging gently in the post-storm breeze. Parking his Jeep near what looked like the town square, Nathan grabbed his flashlight and camera. The place was eerily still, the only sound his boots crunching on the gravel. It was then he saw it, a lone mannequin, positioned in the window of what once might have been a boutique. Its face was expressionless, its gaze fixed on some distant point. For a moment, Nathan felt as if it was watching him, but he shook off the feeling with a chuckle. Just a mannequin, he muttered to himself. As he walked through the desolate streets, Nathan's sense of unease grew. The town was not just abandoned, it was as if it had been frozen in time. Storefronts displayed outdated fashions. A diner had its menu still chalked on a board, prices dating back decades. There were no cars, no signs of recent human activity. It was a ghost town in the truest sense. Intrigued by the absolute absence of life, Nathan decided to document his findings. He began taking pictures, the flash of his camera momentarily illuminating the forgotten corners of Mannequin Alley. He planned to explore more, to unravel the mystery of this place. Little did he know, as night began to fall and shadows grew longer, that the mystery was far deeper and more unsettling than any forgotten town he had ever encountered. Mannequin Alley was not just a relic of the past, it was a place where past and present intertwined in an eerie, silent dance. As the last light of day faded, Nathan felt the first prickle of real fear. There was something about this town, something that whispered of secrets best left undiscovered, but curiosity, as always, got the better of him. He ventured deeper into the heart of Mannequin Alley, unaware of the eyes that seemed to follow him from the shadows. Chapter 2. The Silent Watchers. It's time for a quick scare break. As we linger in these shadowy realms, a small favour I dare to ask. If my tales of terror bring you thrills, do not let our journey end here. Hit like, subscribe, and join our dark congregation. Now shall we delve deeper into the abyss. Let's embrace the darkness once more, Let's get back to the shadows. Nathan's stomach growled, a stark reminder that his impromptu detour had extended well past dinner. The stores, preserved in a bygone era, beckoned. He stepped into what appeared to be a quaint, old-fashioned general store. The shelves were surprisingly well stocked, with canned goods and non-perishables. Guess it won't hurt to borrow a bit, he mused, selecting a few items. The stillness of the shop was unnerving. Each sound he made seemed amplified in the silence. After a makeshift meal of canned beans and a stale but edible loaf of bread, he felt revitalized. Curiosity nudged him further, leading him to explore a few more shops. Each was as abandoned as the last, filled with relics of a time long past. He helped himself to a flashlight, with better batteries and a warmer jacket from an old clothing store. Stepping back into the street, Nathan's heart leaped into his throat. There, at the end of the street, stood what he thought was a person. Relief washed over him, accompanied by a flurry of questions. "Hey!" he shouted, jogging towards the figure. "I thought I was the only one here." As he got closer, the shape resolved itself not into a person, but another mannequin. This one was dressed in faded, elegant dress, its face locked in an eternal, blank stare. Nathan laughed nervously, running a hand through his hair. "You got me good," he said to the mannequin, trying to shake off the eerie feeling. "Thought you were real for a second there." But as he turned to leave, a prickling sense of unease crept up his spine. He didn't remember seeing this mannequin earlier. Frowning, he checked the photos on his camera. Sure enough, the street had been empty before. No sign of the womanly figure that now stood silently watching him. "Hello?" Nathan's voice echoed down the empty street. "Who's there? Who moved this mannequin?" He spun around, scanning the quiet town. That's when he saw it. Another figure. This one standing in the doorway of the shop he had just exited. Heart pounding, he approached, only to find another mannequin. This time, a man in a suit, its blank eyes seeming to stare right through him. "Who's doing this?" Nathan screamed into the void, his voice a mix of fear and frustration. The silence that answered him was complete, oppressive. He looked around wildly, half expecting to catch a glimpse of someone or something moving in the shadows, but there was nothing. Just the mannequins, the silent witnesses to his growing dread, standing as if they had always been there, watching, waiting in the stillness of Mannequin Alley. Nathan shivered, not just from the cold, but from a creeping realization that he was not alone in this abandoned town. Someone, or something, was toying with him. Chapter 3. Echoes in the hall. Nathan's heart was racing as he spun back towards the woman mannequin. But now, she wasn't alone. Two more mannequins stood down beside her, one dressed as a baker, complete with a dusting of flour on his apron, and the other, a child holding a ragged doll. "What the hell?" Nathan muttered under his breath, a cold shiver running down his spine. He walked, almost stumbled through the streets, his shouts for answers echoing off the silent buildings. "Hello? I know someone's here." His voice was tinged with desperation. "Who is it? Who's doing this?" But the only answer was the hollow echo of his own voice. Then, faintly at first, he heard it. Voices. They were coming from the town hall, a grand old building that loomed at the end of the main street. The sound was like a distant meeting, a murmur of conversation and debate. Hope surged in Nathan. People. Finally, people. He ran towards the town hall, the voices growing louder with each step. Bursting through the doors, he expected to find a room full of people, but the hall was empty. The voices cutting off abruptly as if someone had flipped a switch. The chairs were unoccupied, the stage bare. Confusion swirled in his mind. Turning to leave, feeling a mix of frustration and unease, Nathan stepped out of the town hall. The moment his back was turned, the voices started again. Whipping around, he was met with a sight that froze him in his tracks. The once empty chairs were now filled with mannequins, each dressed in different attire, sitting as if in attendance of an important meeting. The voices stopped instantly, the silence deafening. "Who's doing this?" Nathan screamed, his voice cracking. He scanned the mannequins, looking for any sign of life, any hint of who might be orchestrating this macabre display, but their faces were blank, their eyes empty. They were just mannequins. This was more than just an abandoned town. It was a psychological maze, a place where the lines between reality and illusion blurred. Nathan felt his grip on sanity wavering as the eerie silence of Mannequin Alley pressed in on him. The mannequins, with their unseeing eyes and silent forms, seemed to mock his desperation, his fear. Nathan backed out of the town hall slowly, his eyes never leaving the mannequins. As he stepped into the street, the weight of isolation and the surreal nature of his situation crashed down on him. He was alone, yet not alone. Watched, but by whom? Or what? The whispers of the past, the echoes of a life that once was, hung in the air, and Nathan, caught in the heart of this unnerving symphony, began to question his own reality. Was he the intruder here, or was he becoming a part of Mannequin Alley's mysterious silent world? Chapter 4. The Invisible Cage. Nathan's breath came in ragged gasps as he turned around, his heart pounding against his chest. The transformation was complete. The town was now teeming with mannequins. They lined the streets, filled the benches, and crowded the windows of shops. Each was dressed distinctly, capturing a moment in time. A postman, mid-stride with a bag of letters, a group of children playing hopscotch, an elderly couple seated on a park bench, their hands frozen inches apart. The town, once desolate and silent, now mimicked a bustling community, but not with people, with mannequins. It was a macabre parody of life, each figure positioned in a tableau of everyday normalcy. The sun cast long shadows over the scene, creating an eerie contrast of light and dark, life and lifelessness. Panic clawed at Nathan's mind. He turned and ran, his only thought to escape this surreal nightmare. The streets blurred past him as he sprinted towards the edge of town, towards the exit road he had driven in on. But as he reached the town's boundary, his body slammed against an invisible barrier. It was like hitting a wall of solid air, impenetrable and unyielding. Stunned, Nathan fell back onto the ground. He pushed against the barrier with his hands, but it was like pushing against a mountain. The barrier was clear, yet it distorted the view like a heat haze, creating a surreal boundary that caged him within the town. The realization that he was trapped, truly trapped, hit Nathan like a physical blow. His mind raced, teetering on the edge of panic. Was this some kind of elaborate prank? A government experiment? His thoughts spiraled, grappling for any logical explanation, but logic seemed to have abandoned this place. Nathan's breathing became shallow, his eyes darting frantically. The psychological impact was immense. He felt like a specimen under a microscope, observed by unseen eyes. The mannequins, with their lifeless stares, seemed to be the audience to his unraveling. He tried to think, to piece together the puzzle. The town, the mannequins, the invisible barrier. What did it all mean? Was he being punished? Or tested? The questions spun in his head, each more unanswerable than the last. Desperate for answers, Nathan retraced his steps, his gaze flitting between the unmoving figures that populated the town. He started searching for any clue, any sign that might explain his surreal imprisonment. Every shadow, every creak of the old buildings set his nerves on edge. The town was a labyrinth, its secrets cloaked in silence and shadows. As night began to fall, The town took on a more sinister aspect. The mannequins, bathed in the pale moonlight, cast long, grotesque shadows. The line between reality and madness blurred as Nathan's fear morphed into a deep, unsettling dread. He was alone, yet surrounded, trapped in a town that was both familiar and utterly alien. In Mannequin Alley, under the uncaring gaze of 100 frozen eyes, Nathan faced not only the mystery of the town, but also the darker corners of his own mind. The barrier was not just around the town, it was closing in on his sanity, challenging his perception of reality itself. Chapter 5. The Silent Pursuit. Nathan's heart sank as he made his way back into the heart of Mannequin Alley. The scene before him was like a chilling tableau from a nightmare. Every mannequin, previously engaged in their mimicry of daily life, now stood motionless, all of them turned towards him. Their faces, devoid of expression, seemed to watch him with an eerie intensity. The sight sent a shiver down his spine, a visceral reminder that he was not just trapped, but also the focus of something inexplicable. He maneuvered his way through the frozen crowd, their unblinking eyes following his every move. Seeking a brief respite, Nathan entered a bar, hoping the familiar surroundings would offer some comfort. Inside, he poured himself a stiff drink, the liquid burning its way down his throat, providing a fleeting warmth in the cold, silent bar. But as he glanced outside the window, his temporary relief shattered. The mannequins had moved closer, their faces pressed against the glass, eyes fixed on his location. A cold dread gripped him. Were they following him, tracking his every move? Peering further out, Nathan's breath caught in his throat. Every mannequin in town seemed to have turned towards the bar, hundreds of them, a silent, motionless army. The absurdity of the situation battled with the creeping terror in his mind. Desperate for a semblance of safety, Nathan hurried up the stairs of the bar. Reaching the top, he dared a glance downwards. His heart raced at the sight. A few mannequins had infiltrated the bar, standing motionless at the foot of the stairs, as if waiting. He entered an upstairs room, which offered a panoramic view of the town. The scene outside was surreal. The mannequins had congregated around the bar, packed tightly, like a crowd trying to push their way inside. Nathan felt his sanity fraying at the edges, the relentless silence of the mannequins weighing heavily on him. Then, a noise, a subtle, almost imperceptible sound. Nathan cautiously opened the door to the hallway. On the stairs now stood 2 mannequins, their presence a silent threat. Looking back into the bar, he saw it was now filled with mannequins, standing shoulder to shoulder, a frozen audience to his plight. Panic surged through Nathan. His breathing became erratic, his thoughts a whirlwind of fear and confusion. The line between reality and delusion blurred as he struggled to comprehend the surreal nightmare unfolding around him. The mannequins, with their blank stares and silent forms, seemed to be closing in, suffocating him with their presence. Nathan was trapped, not just physically, by the invisible barrier surrounding the town, but mentally, in a maze of fear and paranoia. The psychological torment of being the sole living being in a town overrun by these silent, watching figures was overwhelming. Every creak of the old building, every shift of shadow made him jump. He felt eyes on him constantly, the mannequins, a silent, ever-present audience to his unraveling sanity. In that room, overlooking the town of Mannequin Alley, Nathan faced the terrifying realization that his escape was not just a matter of finding a way out of the town, but also a battle against the encroaching shadows of madness. The mannequins, a relentless, unspoken menace, seemed to be a manifestation of his deepest fears, a silent judgment on his solitary existence. Nathan's hands trembled as he closed the door, his back pressing against it. as if he could reinforce it with his body alone. The room felt like a tiny island of sanity in a sea of madness. His heart pounded in his chest, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence of the mannequins outside. Then, the banging started. It was rhythmic, persistent, a dull thud against the wooden door. "No, go away," Nathan yelled, his voice cracking with fear. The sound seemed to reverberate through the room, a stark intrusion into the eerie quiet. He forced himself to look out of the window again. The mannequins were still there, an army of silent watchers. Some had their lifeless eyes fixed on his window, others pressed against the entrance of the bar, their postures frozen mid-action. It was like a photograph capturing a moment in time, yet Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they were anything but static. He dared not blink, fearing that in the split second of darkness, they might move, inch closer without him seeing. The banging on the door grew louder, more insistent. It echoed in Nathan's mind, each thud a hammer blow to his fraying sanity. The room felt like it was closing in on him, the walls whispering secrets in a language he couldn't understand. The mannequins, with their blank faces and unblinking eyes, seemed to be chipping away at his mind, their presence a constant, unrelenting pressure. In a moment of desperate courage or madness, Nathan couldn't stand it any longer. He lunged for the door, throwing it open. His action was met with an avalanche of mannequins tumbling in, an unending cascade of lifeless bodies. They fell upon him, burying him under their weight. The last thing Nathan saw before darkness enveloped him was the blank, emotionless face of a mannequin, its eyes void of life, yet seemingly staring right into his soul. The chapter ends with Nathan lost under a heap of mannequins, their cold, unyielding forms a physical manifestation of the psychological terror that had gripped him since his arrival in Mannequin Alley. The darkness around him is complete, a fitting metaphor for the descent into the abyss of his own mind where reality and nightmare have become indistinguishable. Final chapter. Dreams of another life. In a bustling store in the heart of a large city, a young woman was busy setting up the latest display in the window. With practiced ease, she positioned the newest edition, a mannequin with strikingly lifelike features. It was the image of Nathan, standing motionless, gazing out into the busy street. "There, all done," she said, stepping back to admire her work. The mannequin, dressed in the latest fashion, added a certain allure to the display. Her colleague, who had been arranging the attire on another mannequin, glanced over. "Looks great. They're almost lifelike, aren't they?" The woman nodded, her eyes still on the mannequin. "You know, I often wonder if these mannequins sometimes have dreams of their own. Wonder what they would dream about, if they could dream about being human." Her colleague laughed softly. "That would be something, wouldn't it? Maybe even dreaming about trying to escape from being a mannequin. But then, I guess all the other mannequins wouldn't be too happy about that." "Yeah," the woman continued, her gaze thoughtful. "They'd have to now do its work. It's funny to think about, isn't it? A mannequin wanting to be something more, living a life beyond these glass walls." The Nathan mannequin stood silent, an eternal observer to the world it could never partake in. Its eyes, though devoid of life, seemed to hold a depth, a hint of longing for something beyond its static existence. In that store window, the mannequin that was Nathan stood as a silent testament to the dreams and aspirations that might dwell within the inanimate. It was a reminder of the thin line between reality and fantasy, where sometimes, just maybe, the unreal dared to dream of being something more. As the women continued their work, unaware of the deeper narrative they had unwittingly touched upon, the Nathan mannequin remained still, a silent guardian of a dream that for one brief, surreal moment in a town called Mannequin Alley felt almost real. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey. If your thirst for the unknown and the unexplained is still unquenched, I invite you to delve deeper into the abyss of terror. Just beyond the veil of reality, another story awaits to send shivers down your spine. Dare to join me in the next video, where the unknown becomes known and the unseen seen. Until then, keep the lights dim and your mind open. This is Professor Shadow, signing off.